stop scrolling right now, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change the way you think about attraction. And I promise, you've never heard it explained like this before. Most men are going about this all wrong. They chase, they beg, they bend over backwards, trying to impress, trying to please, trying to prove their worth. And the sad truth, it never works. The women you want aren't interested in chasing you, not because they're hard to get, but because you're giving them no reason to. I'm going to show you the real secret, the hidden psychology that makes younger women pursue you naturally, without manipulation, without tricks, without pretending to be someone you're not. I'm going to break down 10 powerful strategies that shift the dynamic completely, strategies that flip the chase so that she's the one leaning in, not you. This isn't about looks. It isn't about money. It isn't even about charm. It's about presence, purpose, emotional control, and power. The kind of magnetic energy most men don't even know they have. Once you apply these principles, the game changes. You stop reacting to her signals. You stop wondering if she's interested. You stop giving your power away. And that's when everything shifts. By the end of this video, you'll understand why trying harder always fails, why detachment is more powerful than pursuit, and how enforcing standards and living with purpose makes women naturally chase you without you asking. If you watch carefully, you'll walk away with tools so powerful that your presence alone will make women lean in, respect you, and desire you like never before. Stay tuned, because I'm about to expose truths that most men never hear, and once you understand them, you'll never approach attraction the same way again. Let's slow this down, because this is where most men misunderstand attraction at a fundamental level. When we say, stop chasing and start leading, we're not talking about arrogance, manipulation, or playing games. We're talking about a psychological shift so deep that it changes how people experience you in the room before you've even spoken. Chasing is not about effort. It's about hunter's orientation. When you chase, your attention is outward. You're scanning for approval. You're adjusting yourself in real time to be liked. And psychologically, the moment a woman senses that your behavior is shaped around her reaction, the polarity collapses. Desire needs tension. Chasing dissolves tension because it communicates, you already have power over me. Leadership, on the other hand, is internal alignment. It's when your actions are guided by values, direction, and self-respect rather than emotional hunger. A man who leads doesn't need to announce it. His presence already suggests it. He knows where he's going, and that certainty is felt, not explained. Younger women, especially, are extremely sensitive to this dynamic. Not because they're shallow, but because they're intuitive. They can feel when a man is trying to impress versus when a man is simply expressing who he is. One feels heavy, the other feels grounding, and grounding is rare. Here's the uncomfortable truth: most men believe attraction is created by doing more, saying more, giving more, proving more. But attraction actually intensifies when you remove need from the equations, when your life has structure, rhythm, and direction that existed long before she entered the picture. She's not evaluating you as a candidate begging for approval. She's evaluating whether she wants access to your world. Leadership shows up in small, almost invisible ways. You don't rush conversations to avoid silence. You don't over-text to maintain relevance. You don't panic when responses slow down. You don't alter your boundaries just to keep momentum. These behaviors signal emotional stability, and emotional stability signals strength. And strength, real strength, doesn't ask to be chosen. It chooses. This is where the psychology flips. When a woman realizes she's not the center of your universe, but she is welcome in it, the interaction changes tone. Curiosity replaces control. Interest replaces entitlement. She begins to invest emotionally because now there's something to lose. A man who leads is not reactive. He doesn't let mood swings, mixed signals, or external validation dictate his sense of worth. He observes, he assesses, he responds deliberately. This calm authority creates a subtle hierarchy, not one of dominance, but of raw emotional grounding, and people naturally orient toward those who are grounded. Philosophically, this is about sovereignty, the ability to belong to yourself first. When you are sovereign over your time, energy, and attention, you stop leaking power. And once power stops leaking, it becomes visible, not loud, visible. Leadership also means you're not trying to win every interaction. You're not afraid of disinterest. You're not trying to convince someone of your value. You understand that chemistry is selective, not universal. And paradoxically, that acceptance makes you more attractive because it communicates abundance instead of scarcity. Scarcity chases, abundance leads. Think about this carefully. If you were deeply fulfilled, disciplined, and clear about your direction, would you be chasing validation from anyone? Or would you be moving forward, inviting those who align to walk beside you? That's the energy that pulls younger women in. Not because they're seeking an older man, but because they're seeking eyes of clarity in a world of confusion. Emotional leadership is rare in a culture addicted to attention. When a man is calm, intentional, and self-directed, he becomes an anchor, and anchors attract movement toward them. This doesn't mean you withdraw or become distant. It means you engage without attachment. You speak without rehearsing. You listen without strategizing. You enjoy connection without trying to secure it, and that relaxed certainty creates space for her to step forward. Most men try to be chosen. Very few men act as if they already have choice. That distinction is felt instantly. When you stop chasing, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking your boundaries for approval. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. And in that stillness, something powerful happens. People begin to meet you at your level, or they fall away. Both outcomes are wins. So if there's one thing to take from this, let it be this thought. The moment you stop asking, how do I make her want me? And start asking, does this align with who I'm becoming? You stop being a follower in your own life. And men who lead themselves never need to chase anyone because they're already walking towards something worth following. Let's dive into this, because this is where most men completely miss the point. Confidence isn't about flashing wealth, impressing with words, or performing for approval. Confidence is about emotional control. It's about mastering the inner environment so completely that external chaos cannot shake you. And when a man achieves this, he becomes magnetic in ways that no strategy or gimmick can replicate. Most men live on a roller coaster of reactions. A text goes unanswered, and suddenly panic sets in. A playful comment and ego flares. Complimenting someone and a silent hope lingers. Did I do enough? This constant fluctuation signals neediness, and neediness is the opposite of attraction. Women, especially younger women who are sharp and intuitive, sense it immediately. They feel the imbalance. Your emotional turbulence is like static. It interferes with connection. True confidence comes from internal stability. It's the ability to feel fully present, fully grounded, and fully in command of your reactions. It's the quiet assurance that no matter what is happening around you, your sense of self is untouchable. You can walk into a room, interact with energy, and leave no doubt that you operate from a space of calm authority. This is not arrogance. This is not being unapproachable. It's control without ego, power without aggression, and influence without manipulation. Emotional control creates attraction because it communicates safety. People, especially women, instinctively seek leaders who can regulate themselves under pressure. If a man is stable, predictable in his emotional responses, and unshaken by minor turbulence, he becomes a refuge, a magnetic center around which people naturally orbit. This is why some men, even without conventional looks or status, can command deep attention. Stability alone creates value that is undeniable. But let's break down what this really looks like in practice. You don't overreact when plans change. You don't obsess over mixed signals. You don't let anger, jealousy, or disappointment dictate your actions. You listen first, observe quietly, and respond intentionally. Every measured response communicates, I am not a man to be hurried, pressured, or manipulated. This subtle but powerful language signals maturity, depth, and reliability. Younger women feel it, and it draws them in because it creates contrast with the instability they see in almost every other man. Psychologically, this is rooted in what I call the Oss law of emotional gravity. People naturally move toward emotional centers that are calm and grounded. Chaos repels, neediness repels, anxiety repels. A man who masters himself becomes a gravitational force. It is not something he can fake. It is cultivated through self-awareness, reflection, and disciplined practice. Every choice he makes reinforces the narrative that he is in control of his inner state. Philosophically, this is also about sovereignty. Emotional control is an exercise in personal authority. It is the recognition that your value is independent of external validation. When you know yourself, respect your boundaries, and regulate your emotional reactions, you are no longer subject to the whims of others. You are self-contained, and self-containment is rare in a culture that confuses attention for power and reactions for strength. Another critical element is R's deliberate presence. Emotional control isn't about suppression, it's about clarity. It's the ability to fully experience a moment without letting impulses dictate behavior. You can laugh without insecurity, tease without neediness, and connect without desperation. Presence amplifies every interaction because people sense your authenticity and are drawn to it. Younger women especially feel this on a subconscious level. They may not articulate it, but they recognize a man who is calm, confident, and fully present, and they respond to that energy with fascination. Contrast this with the typical male approach: frantic pursuit, reactive behavior, and constant self-monitoring. That creates friction, tension, and ultimately disinterest. Emotional control flips the dynamic. It creates space for intrigue. It allows attraction to build naturally because women are drawn to men who can contain themselves. This containment is not control over them. It is control over yourself, which paradoxically gives them freedom to invest emotionally. Let's address a common misconception: emotional control is not the same as emotional detachment. It's not about being cold or unreachable. It's about why, choosing how and when to express emotion. It's about precision. It's about discernment. A man who is emotionally controlled can express passion, intensity, and vulnerability, but on his terms, in ways that deepen connection rather than create instability. Women feel this subtle power, and it becomes irresistible. This level of mastery requires practice. You have to observe your impulses without being enslaved to them. You have to pause before reacting. You have to cultivate habits that reinforce calmness, whether that's physical discipline, meditation, reflection, or structured routines. Every step you take toward emotional mastery compounds, and soon it becomes a defining feature of your presence. Here's the paradox: the more controlled you are, the more magnetic you become. The less you seek to impress, the more people are impressed. The less you chase, the more people chase. Emotional control is invisible, yet it is noticed immediately. It is silent, yet it speaks volumes. It is effortless, yet it creates outcomes that others spend years trying to force. So if you remember nothing else, remember this: your ability to master your own emotional state is not just attractive, it is transformative. It changes how women see you, how they respond to you, and ultimately how you experience life. Confidence rooted in external factors fades. Confidence rooted in emotional control endures. Embrace this principle. Practice it relentlessly. Make your calm presence and deliberate response the standard for every interaction. When you do, you stop reacting to the world. You start creating it. And in that creation, you become magnetic, not because you demand attention, but because the world naturally aligns with men who hold themselves together with unwavering authority. Your challenge is simple but profound. Become unshakable. Become the man whose emotional center cannot be rattled. When you achieve this, you will no longer chase. You will no longer plead for interest. You will no longer wonder if you are enough. Because the moment you master yourself, the world, and the women you desire will naturally align with the gravity of your presence. Let's get into something most men completely misunderstand, and it's where the real magnetic power lies. When we talk about putting purpose before pleasure, we're not just talking about ambition, goals, or success in the conventional sense. We're talking about cultivating a life so compelling, so structured, and so self-directed that attraction becomes a natural byproduct rather than something you have to manufacture. This is where most men fail. They confuse attention with significance, and in doing so, they make themselves available before they are remarkable. Purpose is not a concept you can fake. It is not a title, a job, or a social media image. Purpose is a rhythm, a drive, and a commitment that exists independently of external validation. When your daily life is built around intention, when your mornings, afternoons, and evenings are designed to move you closer to your vision, something invisible happens. People notice. Women notice. Younger women, in particular, sense the energy of direction because it signals emotional and psychological leadership. It tells them that this man is moving through the world with momentum, and momentum is irresistible. Contrast this with men who put pleasure first. These are the men who bend their schedules, choices, and priorities to gain approval. They chase social validation, seek fleeting attention, or try to fill emptiness with temporary satisfaction. Pleasure without purpose is hollow, and humans, especially women attuned to subtle energy, can feel the hollowness instantly. When your life is reactive instead of proactive, you appear scattered. You appear incomplete. And incomplete energy repels, even if your intentions are good. Purpose amplifies every other quality a man possesses: emotional control, presence, discipline. They all become more visible and more credible when a man has a reason for being beyond himself. A man with direction is not just desirable because he is confident or disciplined. He is desirable because he represents progress, stability, and structure in a world of chaos. Purpose creates a gravitational pull, and women are instinctively drawn to men who can move through life with clarity. This does not mean you ignore pleasure entirely. It does not mean you sacrifice joy or human connection. The difference lies in priority and alignment. Pleasure must follow purpose, not precede it. The man who spends his life pleasing others first, chasing experiences before building his foundation, will always find that desire is fleeting and attention is temporary. The man who first becomes a complete, structured, self-directed force invites others into a stable orbit. And when women sense that stability, the pursuit flips. Instead of you chasing, they are drawn to see if they can keep up. The philosophy here is simple but radical. You cannot give what you do not have. If your energy is fragmented, if your attention is divided, if your life is built around reacting to others, you cannot inspire attraction because your foundation is unstable. Purpose is the foundation. It is the central axis around which all other qualities revolve. A man with purpose does not need to compete for attention, he generates it. His presence alone signals a life worth entering. This is why younger women are particularly responsive to purpose-driven men. They are looking for someone who can lead, not just romantically, but energetically. They want to be part of something larger than themselves. When a man demonstrates commitment to his own path, he is signaling a life of abundance, structure, and value. This is magnetic because it communicates scarcity in the right way, not scarcity of availability, but scarcity of attention, focus, and time. And scarcity in this sense creates desire. Purpose also intersects deeply with authenticity. A man who moves through life based on genuine interest, passion, and mission radiates authenticity. He doesn't perform to impress, he doesn't alter himself for approval, and he doesn't chase validation. The result is a form of attractiveness that cannot be mimicked or bought. Women sense authenticity at a visceral level. They feel when a man is aligned with his own life versus when he is bending for theirs. Alignment produces a quiet power, a silent authority, and a magnetic energy that draws attention without effort. Another critical aspect of prioritizing purpose over pleasure is long-term vision. Men who think in terms of immediate gratification are often trapped in short-term dynamics. They may get attention, but it is shallow and fleeting. Men who lead with purpose operate on a longer timeline. Their choices are strategic, their energy is directed, and their relationships are measured. They understand that true attraction is built in layers: trust, respect, admiration, and desire, all of which require a stable, consistent foundation to develop. Pleasure alone cannot sustain this. Purpose can. Let's be clear. This is not about rigidity or obsession with achievement. It's about intentionality. Every action, interaction, and decision is filtered through the lens of alignment with your life's trajectory. Even leisure is intentional, not reactive. Even connection is guided by whether it enriches, challenges, or complements your journey. This intentionality radiates competence, stability, and charisma, qualities that are profoundly attractive. Finally, let's consider the psychological effect on the woman in this dynamic. When she sees a man who is not merely responding to her presence, but is fully engaged in building himself, her subconscious assessment changes. She no longer evaluates him as someone she can win over through manipulation or charm. She evaluates him as a force of stability and direction. And women are drawn to forces. They are drawn to structure, to reliability, to energy that is steady and purposeful. When a man's life has weight and direction, they instinctively feel compelled to approach, engage, and invest. So if there's one takeaway here, it's this: stop building your life around attention, fleeting pleasures, and external validation. Start building it around purpose, vision, and self-directed action. Let pleasure follow naturally, not lead recklessly. When your life is intentional, aligned, and structured, women do not have to chase. They are drawn to you because your presence represents a life they want to step into, not just a man they want to win. The men who understand this do not compete for attention. They generate it effortlessly. They do not plead for connection. They invite it naturally. They do not wonder if they are enough. They already are. And when you put purpose before pleasure, the world and the women you desire align with the force of your direction. Your challenge is clear: become a man whose life is bigger than desire. Become the force that moves first, while others react. Because men who lead with purpose do not chase. They are naturally, magnetically, and inevitably pursued. Let's examine something most men completely misunderstand: the power of standards, and why having them is not optional if you want to command genuine attraction. Too often, men believe that being liked means saying yes, accommodating every whim, or lowering boundaries to avoid conflict. That is not strength. That is submission disguised as kindness. Standards are not rigid rules designed to control others. They are the reflection of your self-respect, your inner structure, and your unwillingness to compromise your value. And when you embody this, attraction doesn't just increase, it becomes inevitable. Women, particularly younger women, are instinctively drawn to men who operate with discernment, not because they want to be tested, but because they sense integrity, self-possession, and inner authority. When a man has clear standards, he communicates without a word that he is not desperate, that he is not malleable, and that his life is not negotiable. This communicates value far more powerfully than any charm, money, or superficial display ever could. A man who enforces boundaries demonstrates that he is a man of principle, and principle is magnetic. Think about what it means to enforce standards. It's not about aggression. It's not about being unkind or creating drama. It's about making deliberate choices about who you allow into your space, who you give your attention to, and how you permit yourself to be treated. A man who enforces standards understands that every interaction is a reflection of his worth. and he refuses to allow anyone to diminish that. This creates a polarity that women feel on a subconscious level. They sense that they are not negotiating for him. They are evaluating whether they belong in his orbit. Most men make the critical mistake of thinking that attraction is built by bending to the desires of others. They think saying yes, accommodating needs, or tolerating disrespect will earn interest. In reality, it has the opposite effect. Desperation repels. Tolerance of disrespect destroys tension. Standards, on the other hand, create tension in exactly the right way. They define limits, create contrast, and invite pursuit. When a woman realizes that she cannot take you for granted, she naturally leans in. Desire grows when there is the risk of loss, when she must consciously earn access to your time, attention, and energy. Standards are also deeply tied to emotional leadership. A man without standards is easily shaken. He reacts to whims, opinions, and moods because he has no internal framework. A man with standards responds deliberately. He chooses which battles to engage, which interactions to invest in, and which energies to reject. This selective approach communicates strength without effort. It communicates discernment without arrogance. It communicates that his inner world is stable, structured, and not subject to external chaos. Philosophically, this is about sovereignty. Enforcing standards is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself first. It's about refusing to be swept into behaviors or patterns that diminish your sense of self. A man who understands his value and enforces boundaries is effectively saying, "I belong to myself first." That statement alone creates a psychological pull that is almost impossible to resist. People are drawn to sovereignty, and women feel this pull instinctively. Standards also intersect with long-term vision. A man who compromises his boundaries for immediate approval sacrifices long-term influence. He may gain temporary attention, but he loses respect, depth, and credibility. Conversely, a man who holds firm, who enforces standards consistently, cultivates an aura of reliability and trustworthiness. Women are drawn to reliability not because it is boring, but because it communicates strength and predictability in a chaotic world. This is what turns fleeting attention into genuine interest, and genuine interest into pursuit. It is essential to understand that standards do not create fear, they create clarity. They clarify who you are, what you value, and what is acceptable in your life. A man with standards is not punishing others, he is simply communicating his boundaries. And when these boundaries are respected, a deeper connection is possible. When they are tested, the response communicates power. This subtle polarity is the essence of attraction. Many men struggle with this because they mistake compromise for diplomacy or politeness for weakness. True strength lies in balancing empathy with firmness. You can be kind and compassionate while maintaining boundaries. You can be respectful without sacrificing authority. Women are drawn to men who can navigate this balance because it signals maturity, wisdom, and control, qualities that are rare and intensely attractive. Standards also create scarcity, which is a principle of desire. When a man is abundant with attention, interest, or availability, he diminishes his perceived value. When a man is selective, deliberate, and disciplined about where he invests his energy, he becomes rare. And rarity is magnetic. The more a woman must consciously earn access to your attention and time, the deeper her investment becomes. This is not manipulation. It is simply the natural law of value and attraction. Another element often overlooked is that standards protect your energy. Men without standards are constantly exhausted, drained, and reactive. Men with standards preserve energy for meaningful interaction, for growth, and for relationships that actually enhance their lives. This self-preservation is not selfish. It is foundational to living a life of power and influence. Women sense this preservation. They feel when energy is guarded and wisely allocated, and they are drawn to it because it promises stability and depth. Ultimately, standards are the visible reflection of inner strength. They are not lists or arbitrary rules. They are the manifestation of self-respect, clarity, and emotional sovereignty. When a man enforces standards, he signals that he is a man who knows his worth and will not settle for less. This signal alone ignites attraction, initiates pursuit, and shifts dynamics from uncertainty to magnetic inevitability. So, if you take one thing from this, let it be this: stop allowing circumstances, opinions, or fleeting desires to dictate how you are treated. Define your standards, enforce them consistently, and refuse to compromise your value for attention. When you do, you will no longer chase, you will no longer hope, you will no longer negotiate for desire. Instead, desire will be drawn to you, naturally, relentlessly, and inevitably, because a man with standards is not merely attractive, he is untouchable. The men who understand this are not desperate, they are deliberate. They are not reactive, they are magnetic. They are not seeking, they are sovereign. And women, especially younger women, cannot help but be drawn to the authority, integrity, and self-respect that only standards can create. Let's explore a principle that most men completely overlook, and yet it is one of the most powerful forces in attraction: detachment from outcomes. This is not indifference. It is not coldness or emotional withdrawal. It is the ability to engage fully, to connect deeply, and to invest energy without needing the result to match your expectation. Most men approach relationships, conversations, or interactions with a hidden agenda. They want approval, validation, or confirmation that they are enough. This neediness is palpable. It leaks from body language, speech patterns, and subtle energy, and it destroys attraction before it has a chance to flourish. Detachment from outcomes is a radical shift in perspective. It is the understanding that your value, your presence, and your identity do not hinge on someone else's response. When a man embodies this principle, he is free to enjoy the interaction without pressure, free to express himself without constraint, and free to remain unshaken regardless of how the other person reacts. And paradoxically, this freedom makes him infinitely more attractive. Women sense it instinctively. They feel the absence of need, and that absence creates desire. Think about how most men operate. Every word, every gesture, and every decision is filtered through the lens of expectation. If I say this, will she like me? If I do that, will she stay interested? This creates a constant tension, a visible push for approval that women, especially younger women, perceive immediately. They do not want to feel that they hold the power to make you worthy. The moment you are attached to the outcome, you give away control. You place your emotional stability outside yourself, and this instantly diminishes attraction. When you detach from outcomes, you flip the dynamic entirely. You engage with intention and authenticity, but you do not tie your emotional state to the response. You observe, participate, and contribute, but your energy is sovereign. This creates polarity. Women instinctively feel the difference between a man who is desperate for validation and a man who is fully grounded in himself. They are drawn to the latter because it signals strength, completeness, and freedom. Detachment does not mean passivity. It does not mean waiting for life to happen or resigning yourself to fate. It means acting decisively, but without clinging to the result. It means pursuing goals, expressing interest, and taking initiative, but with a calm assurance that no single outcome defines you. This mindset allows a man to navigate attraction without anxiety, without overthinking, and without compromising his principles. It transforms interactions from negotiation into natural flow. Psychologically, detachment is about our internal locus of control. Most men operate with an external locus. Their happiness, confidence, and sense of self-worth are contingent on external validation. Detachment shifts the focus inward. Your worth is determined by your alignment with your values, your integrity, and your presence. When your sense of self is secure, you no longer need to manipulate outcomes to feel good. This security is magnetic because it communicates abundance. Abundance is irresistible. Women, especially younger women, are highly attuned to need and scarcity. A man who seeks approval is scarce in authenticity, abundant in anxiety. A man who is detached from outcomes is abundant in authenticity, scarce in desperation. This polarity is what drives pursuit. It creates a natural pull because she senses a man who is complete, who is not dependent on her for validation, and who is free to walk away without fear. And humans are hardwired to be drawn to freedom, to energy that is sovereign and unbound. Detachment also allows for clarity in choice. When a man is not emotionally invested in the outcome, he can evaluate connections, opportunities, and interactions without distortion. He sees reality clearly, without the haze of hope, fear, or expectation. This clarity amplifies decision-making, emotional intelligence, and leadership. It makes him more selective, more discerning, and therefore more rare. And rarity, as we've discussed, is magnetic. Philosophically, detachment aligns with the idea that power lies in presence, not possession. You cannot possess desire, you can only radiate it. You cannot force interest, you can only embody it. When you detach from the outcome, you stop trying to control external reactions and instead control your internal state. This control is invisible but undeniable. Women feel it. The world feels it, and the impact is immediate. Your presence alone becomes compelling. In practical terms, detachment manifests in subtle ways. You do not over-message to gain attention. You do not perform to impress. You do not rationalize or over-explain. You enter conversations fully, speak intentionally, and exit interactions without lingering need. You maintain curiosity without desperation. You enjoy connection without demanding commitment. Every interaction becomes a dance of energy, not a transaction of validation. Detachment also protects your energy. Men who cling to outcomes are constantly drained, anxious, and reactive. They give away emotional power to external circumstances. Men who master detachment preserve energy for interactions that matter, for personal growth, and for experiences that align with their values. This preservation is not selfish. It is essential to maintaining magnetism and influence. One of the most powerful paradoxes of detachment is this: the less you need to be chosen, the more you are chosen. When a man is free of attachment, he is not acting from fear, he is acting from confidence, clarity, and alignment. Women sense this. They recognize that he is not desperate to please, but deliberate to live. This deliberate living, this freedom from outcome, is rare and intensely attractive. Ultimately, detachment is about sovereignty. It is about claiming your emotional territory and refusing to allow external forces to dictate your worth. It is about acting with integrity and intention while remaining free from dependency. It transforms attraction from a series of tactical maneuvers into a natural byproduct of presence, discipline, and authenticity. So if you take nothing else from this, let it be this: stop tying your emotional state to someone else's response. Stop calculating, performing, and bending to secure approval. Engage fully, act decisively, and invest your energy where it matters. But remain unattached to the result. The moment you do this, you stop chasing, you stop pleading, you stop negotiating for desire. Instead, desire comes to you, naturally, inevitably, and magnetically, because the man who is detached from outcomes is the man who is truly free, truly sovereign, and truly irresistible.